Hello, my name is Huyen,
Hello, my name is Julian.
and we're going to be talking about discrimination. We have selected two articles to talk about.
My article is named Workplace Discrimination Prompts Whiten Job Applications. It's written by Holly Wallace and Stephen Rupp, and the article is published by BBC News.
My article's name is Bullshit. Canadian Minister blasts lack of diversity in corporate top jobs. We're also going to be talking about just a little bit about what discrimination actually is. For example, discrimination is when you place a difference between a man and a woman and pull the other one up. For example, in top jobs, if you choose the two applicants, one's a woman, one's a man, they have the same qualifications, but you choose the man just because he's a man, that's discrimination towards the woman.
Discrimination is if you treat a person or a particular group of people differently, especially worst ways as possible, which are if you treat them by their color of their skin or their sex or their sexuality, etc.
Exactly.
My article, which was named Workplace Discrimination Prompts Whiten Job Application, it starts with the authors raising a question that reads, do ethnic minority women face discrimination in the UK? But we're going to look at how it is to find a job for these women. The authors Holly Walls and Stephen Robb begin to interview 22-year-old Jordan Berkeley, a 22-year-old unemployed black woman who has spent 4 months looking for jobs but with no luck. She says that her career advisor says she should drop her first name Jordan and start using her second name Elizabeth. She was not very fond of the solution, but she gave it a try, and she says that it has helped her in her job search for jobs, and she has been cutting calls ever since. She later says that many of her friends have been told to whiten up their CVs by dropping their names or activities that are stereotypically black. She says that it's a very sad realization that the All-Party Parliamentary Group, APPG, reports that unemployment rates among ethnic minority women have remained consistently higher since the 1980s. They also report that in 2011, the overall employment rate for ethnic minority women was 14.3%, and compared to the white women, which was 6.8%. And among Pakistani or Bangladeshi women, it rose to 20.5%. The author states that it's a very sad realization that for these women that they statistically have a lesser chance than white women, and she says that you can see it everywhere, also in acting or sports or maybe even in love life in the UK. And the APG statistics are from the 2011 report.
The Minister of Canada is speaking to young law students at the University of Windsor. His comments were made on the discrimination in higher end jobs, where they said that women were understaffed, but he made the claim that it was bullshit. The Canadian minister also gave them some stats. Women make up 12% of directors at companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, while visible minorities make up 4.5%, also makes a statement. His claims are similar to many other claims from anti-feminists in that there is no discrimination in Western civilization, even though there is evidence which says otherwise. For example, in America, the wage gap, which is often represented, is 77 cents to the dollar between a man and a woman. The man getting the dollar and the woman getting 77 cents. He says that one of the reasons for the lack of diversity in the corporate leadership is due to lack of the right people. He says, and I quote, "One of the issues I hear from people is, well, we just don't have the people. We don't have the talent. We don't have the women. We don't have the diversity in our corporation. We would love to promote diversity, but we just can't find the people." He also states that this is a bunch of bullshit with the discrimination in the higher end jobs. He also states in his speech, the problem isn't that they aren't part of the problem is they aren't part of the golf network. They're not part of the club network, the social network that a lot of these boards exist and operate under. This gives an impression that he, in those words, is discriminating against those who not are in the golf network or the club network or in the social networks from which the boards are. The minister's comments came as the federal Liberal government seeks to pass legislation that would force the country's public traded companies to regularly disclose information on diversity among their directors and senior management to shareholders. The government has said the legislation is aimed at encouraging the recruitment of women and other underrepresented groups for corporate boards and senior management, which means that they are addressing the problem, if you will, of women not having the higher end jobs as opposed to the men having the higher end jobs.
The authors also interview half Bangladeshi and half Arab woman who does not want to be named. She explains that changing her name helped her in the entrepreneur business. She quotes, "Whilst my non-Muslim sounding adapted name landed me an interview in the marketing department of large and prestigious department store, the attitude to face-to-face interviews never changed when the interviewers saw that I wasn't no white or an Asian woman." She says that British society is very discriminationally built, and she hopes that getting a good job changes through the years. We see in both articles, which are that Huyin's article reads that it's a bunch of bullshit, while my article reads that it is actually relevant and it's happening everywhere. We see in my article that women in the EU, this is UK based and this is Canada based, that here in the UK women have a harder time getting top jobs while because of their color or their sexuality, and especially in Bangladeshi or Pakistani women where it reads that the percentage of unemployed women is 20.5%.
And in my article, it states that while there is a difference between men and women in these jobs, it is not because of discrimination, but just because they don't have the right people, or, as he says, the women don't have the qualifications that the men have. So the article states that, yes, there is a difference between men and women, but it's not because of discrimination, it's just because the men have something more than the women have in these jobs, which is normal, and frankly I think that he says so while we read between the lines in this article, and he says that even though there's a difference, there's not a discriminating difference.
Okay, so she explains that women women don't face discrimination, but rather that the women have lesser qualities to get these top jobs than men have. Is that what you're stating?
That's what I'm stating out from this article.
Okay.
That's not saying that
Yeah.
all women don't have the qualifications that men
Yes.
have, just that these women here didn't have the qualifications that men
Yeah.
had. Thank you.
Thank you. This was Julian,
This was Huyen.
and we see you next week. Subscribe.